Hi there. I wanted to talk a little bit more about the autism diagnosis. I'm trying to not get my too messy house in the video because my daughter has just like littered the house with stickers and art today, bless her. So I wanted to talk a little bit about diagnosis past. I think, what are we now? We're like about 6 weeks since diagnosis. My husband's had a few psych appointments. The first one I went to, I really struggled with because I kind of find like, I think he's kind of, it's only an hour, and I think there's a little bit of like, he kind of assumes a lot. And I have a background of social work psychology, so I really struggle sometimes when I go to see these professionals, and I think, oh my goodness, I'd be asking so many more questions about how people are and how they're, say their family work or just their personal attributes of who they are. And so I struggle in that way. And that first appointment, we are worried because the more, after the diagnosis, the more weeks kind of go on, we're kind of finding that my husband's, more autistic in his symptomatic experiences, is probably the best way to put it. And so I know one day we're going to be like, everyone keeps saying, one day you won't even remember, that this has happened. It won't seem that hard. And it's like, this has always been hard. This just because now we have diagnosis doesn't mean that suddenly all the stress goes away or it gets easier. It hasn't been any easier. It's been harder. He's been, struggling at work even more because he really doesn't want to work in that environment. He struggles energetically in that environment. There's a lot of social expectation in that environment, and he's just exhausted. The hours of his job are just terrible. And I have heard this from so many people, and I've seen this in so many videos because I do a lot of YouTube binge watching, of other partners with Asperger, partners or husbands or wives. And the biggest thing is we had a child, so he has to go work. And that's been really hard. And I've heard this over and over again in videos from wives. And then the husband gets quite controlling with the money. They don't mean to a lot of the time, but it just kind of happens. And, you're kind of in a position where, not only are you not able to maybe go and work full time because you've got your child at home, but also your husband has Asperger's or autism. So, leaving him home isn't always the best solution either, because, he struggles to look after that. So, when I was doing my university placement, I left him home for 3 months, 2 months or something, because he didn't have work and he didn't do anything around the house. Like, I couldn't complete my placement because he couldn't do things around the house. So I couldn't have my cake and eat it too. I couldn't go out and do my own thing. I struggled to even get out like ever just to have some time for myself, because it may not be okay for him that day or night. He calls it the roll of the dice, and I have to deal with that too. That's not just his life, that's my life as well. And I'm a social being. I'm a very social being, and I'm really lonely, yeah? And it's a lonely life. And everywhere that I, watch videos as well or read, not only is motherhood lonely, but I have this extra part where I have this amazing person in my life, but connection is really hard to find. And I'm often not having a two-way conversation. I am exhausted because he's exhausted, and both of us are exhausted. So, you know, that can be really hard. I'm having to talk him out of, you know, I call it jumping off the cliff, because often he's got himself wound up so much about something that seems, you know, minor to me, and I have to talk him through that. Recently, it was a Facebook status that he'd put up, and somebody commented, and it was really eating him up. And so the issue is, you and I might still be able to function. You know, our thoughts, if you're a neurotypical, your thoughts are like, oh yeah, I'm a bit frustrated, that person said something. I've had people say some weird stuff to me recently around, you know, my feeling down, and you know, that almost isn't okay to them. I'm not allowed to feel down and stressed and find this really hard or something. I don't know. I think it's just like they don't know what to say. I think people get really stumped with autism and they don't really know what to say. I guess because to them the person doesn't seem autistic or something. But, you know, this one thing had stressed him out so much that he couldn't do anything else in his life. He could function to go to work because he knew he had to make money. But when it came to other things, or even have a connection with me, or, you know, anything else, like this one comment that he saw on Facebook that affected him, he couldn't until, you know, we eventually talked about it. And I said to him, you've got to understand that, you know, the reason that this person wrote that comment is because they're neurotypical. So their brain goes to, you know, they can connect with that emotion. And so he's sitting there going, I don't understand why they'd feel so emotional about that. It's a fact, you know, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, but you work with facts, and that person works with emotion. So I then had to explain that, and it's really exhausting. And it's not very nice, but I do say a lot of the time I'm dealing with a couple 3-year-olds or 4-year-olds because, you know, sometimes he is at the level that my daughter's at. And you know, the psychologist has said that, like, the processing just hasn't developed in some spaces, and in other spaces he's absolutely incredible, the most intelligent person I've ever met and spoken to. But my God, is it lonely. It is so lonely, especially when you don't have a lot of family. And, you know, my family are really great, but his family we haven't really heard much from. It's really lonely. And I feel for him, you know, like, he's lonely. He's lonely because he's made some friends, and he's made some not so good friends. And I'm really wary of that, because I don't want people in our life that are going to be demotivational. It's got us to this point for him to be motivated to, you know, where he is, without having demotivating people in our life. So, you know, it's kind of feels like a lot of people that he's kind of met a pie in the sky thinking, and that's not always bad, but it's like, where's the structure sometimes? I like just to have a bit of structure in my life. Something that I've really noticed is, like, he's like a stable brick. He's the foundation, essentially. And I'm, like, so flexible, and I'm so flowing, and I'm really creative, and I just go with the flow. And if I sleep in, I sleep in, and I don't really think about it. If he sleeps in, he thinks he's the worst person in the world, and we've got to go on this round trip loop of worry, you know. And then we have to have a conversation about it, and I have to make sure everything's okay. It's very exhausting. I sometimes wonder whether we would have got married and had a child if I knew. I don't know. I think we would have, because I always wanted to, and I feel like he's, and I've heard this a lot in videos, the only person who's ever got me. And I do feel like he's the only person that is natural enough to not see all the bullshit. And my friends who are also Asperger's are the same, and they're my closest friends, and it's because they have no bullshit. And I really appreciate that in people. So I seem to have a lot of that around me because I really, really am appreciative of honesty. I don't like bullshit, and I don't like lying, and I don't like, not telling the truth. And what I've found with people with Asperger's, they can't lie. So, well, the ones that I know. So very honest people, and I really appreciate that in their personality and their attributes. And what I have found interesting is, and I'd be interested to know how others have felt, is before the diagnosis, there was a lot of my fault. So a lot of it was my fault. So, it was pinpointed on me, that it must be me, and, it must be my issue and all this kind of stuff. And now that we know that he's autistic, it's kind of like, well, that's because you're autistic. So he used to get really angry because I could remember things, yeah? And he has, like, the worst short-term memory ever. Working memory is almost zero. So he used to get really angry at me for that. It's my fault because I remember things. I mean, seems kind of crazy, yeah? But it was, like, something that happened a lot, and he got really angry at me for these kind of things that he couldn't do. So, and he'd get angry at himself. I mean, there was a lot of self-aggression. He put a hole in our wall, and luckily they don't really care and they're letting him fix it up because we're in a rental. But he put a hole in the wall because he just got so angry. And, I mean, he'd never be aggressive towards me. Like, never. I would have left very early in the piece. But it's self-aggression because he knows that it's a frustration within him. He knows, it's not me. But, when you're in that state, you've got to put it off to someone sometimes. You want to play the victim, which is understandable as well. But, yeah, so where are we? When did we go for the thing? I think it was like, God, I can't even remember. It's been such a blur. But I know he's had 1, 2, 3 appointments with the psych, so that must be about 6, 7 weeks. So first appointment, yeah, the psych was kind of like, oh, he really can't go on DSP unless he's got really bad anxiety and depression. And then we went in this session and, came as saying, my husband was saying, I'm not okay. He had a massive meltdown the other day to the point of catatonic state, and it was very frightening, and I didn't know what to do. And, the psych's like, oh, just let him be, let him come out of it. It's like, he was outside in the freezing cold. Like, I'm not just going to let him sit out there. It was very hard to get him out of it, though. And it was very frightening. And our daughter was, I just thought he gone out there because he was frustrated. And our daughter went and sat out on his leg, he was sitting, and she sat on his lap. And that's when I knew that something was going on, because he didn't move. He didn't flinch. It was very odd. So then the psych was quite worried. And, my husband was saying that, he's having problems with anxiety, and the psych said, look, you go to a doctor, because, if you're going to go on disability, you have to go find a doctor who's going to send a letter of recommendation. And, it's hard because he's been working, but he's been suicidal for a very long time, He's been working, and because he functioned enough that he didn't completely fuck it up, because he knows that he has to sustain the house. So he's got a level of responsibility, but puts that responsibility all the time over his own health implications because he can't self-regulate. So it just feels like it's so complex, more than just going to a GP and saying, hey, I've got anxiety. It's just so much more complex. And, the depression stuff comes because of the spit out and the inner monologue and the loop and all that kind of stuff. And it's just really hard to, decipher kind of, what you're meant to do. So he can't work in this job he's working in. It's just killing him. And he asked for a night off, and they're like, oh, and he's casual. Just, you know, it's a casual job, yeah. And they're like, oh, I don't know if you can have the night off, right? Because my husband's never going to say, oh, it's because of this. So, you know, and I often are having these conversations I had to email, you know, his mum, because I know he'll never have the conversation and he won't be able to articulate what he needs to articulate. It's a never-ending advocacy that happy to do, but very exhausting at the same time. And yeah, it's interesting. I'm really interested to know how other wives or partners have found, you know, whether autistic or Asperger's partners at work, because he now wants to go work for himself, which is all fine, because I know he's like fucking amazing at what he does, and he needs to go out and do this stuff and feel motivated to do it, or he's literally going to kill himself. Like, I don't know how he's still alive, to be honest, because he's just being pushed left, right and centre into these weird situations, not knowing he's Asperger's. I mean, if I knew he was Asperger's, oh man, I would have pushed him to do this stuff a long time ago. I wouldn't have been like, just stay, you know, in the industry that you are. I would have really pushed it, because as much as he wasn't really enjoying it, he would function to a point. And you know, it's this loop of function, and the loop of function was longer. So, you know, months of disconnect and stress, and now it's kind of like weeks and weeks and weeks, and like it's really tight. It's a tight dysfunction now. I'm not sure how I feel about it either way, because I'm not functioning and our daughter's not functioning, and you know, we are wondering whether she's on the spectrum as well. I don't really wonder, I'm pretty damn sure, but she's not really at kindy age yet, so I'm not 100% worried. You know, she's really struggling going to childcare, but what can you do? I think that's pretty normal for kids anyway. She's very visual, so if they don't use visual things, then she's really struggling. So I've got her doing a lot of art at the moment, and she's really enjoying that. And she's okay. She's all right, but I can see how a child would really struggle if you're not allowing them to be who they need to be as on the spectrum. Yeah, so we're moving back home because we can't do this anymore. So he's quitting his job. Luckily, I haven't started work. It's actually really good because I've been working for myself, and I haven't started like any jobs or anything after studying last year. So that's probably really positive, because I don't have to quit a job or anything like that, and I can take my business interstate. A lot of it is online, so that's positive. But we're going to be living with my dad, so that's going to be weird. I'm a very independent person, and I moved out of home at 18, and I did move back home once, but I'm not a big fan. So I love my parents, but you know, but yeah, we'll be living with my dad, and then my mum lives separately, so it'll be good because we'll have her space too that we can go to. I'm really looking forward to seeing my friends again. One thing that I've really noticed is the lack of support that we've had, and that's not, I guess, to anyone's fault, except we just didn't make the friendships that I had, you know, back at home. And so I call a lot of my friends at home when I'm struggling, or text them. I don't even know, except for 2 or 3 people, who to go to anymore. I've got like like when I'm really bad, I'll call. I've got one friend who always seems to know, and will call me. And then I've got like a couple friends who will always see if I'm okay. I have my friends who have Asperger's, they're just like, they're struggling as it is, so I don't expect anything. my friends here, like, that could come 5 minutes and visit me, I really struggle to connect with, and I don't really find that, it's not that they don't care, but it's like their conversation is, it doesn't go too deep. Whereas, like, I'm a really deep person, and I mean, I'm a social worker anyway, so in a way, my husband's married the right person because I'm a natural organizer, planner, and, you know, I don't see this as a burden. I see it as an opportunity. I'm a very optimistic person, so I see everything as an opportunity. And yeah, I get really down and depressed, and often these are the worst days because it's the weekend and he works 12 hours. Very lonely, and I've kind of just got to the point where I'm just watching Netflix. I'm not really working at the moment, but I've got no energy at all. So even packing the house up is like, it's just not really happening. But, you know, like, people know what's going on, and I got accused of, you know, putting myself out there like I shouldn't. And I'll always advocate that we need to have more, you know, vocalized information and stories of mental health, and, you know, that's just from our living experience of mental health, both of ours. I mean, he was diagnosed with schizophrenia and weed-induced stress-induced psychosis, at the age of like 17, you know, and I was diagnosed with manic depression at very young. God, I think 15. I think I was 15. And I don't think I'm manic depressive. I'm just really emotional. And when you've got a really emotional person and your husband's an Asperger's, it's like, it's a bit of a recipe for disaster, to be honest. But I'm really determined to be myself. And I think I did lose a lot of that. You know, we're kind of coming into ourselves a little bit more. And I feel like I really lost myself, you know. I really did. And I feel like I kind of became a bit too serious, because he's quite serious, and I feel like I took on that a little bit too much. And I'm looking forward to going home because I can actually have fun. Yeah, like, I'm really looking forward to having fun, and I'm really looking forward to enjoying myself, and I'm really looking forward to be able to go out and my mum be able to help and my dad be able to help, and just having that support. So yeah, I am looking forward to that, because I think the problem is like, people don't ask what's up. So, you know, we've plastered across our social media or whatever that, you know, Kay is autistic, but no one's like, hey, are you okay? Hey, you know, that must be tough. I mean, we know enough about autism to know, like, it's not easy. Like, it is special needs, and they would hate to feel like a burden like that. I know that, but it is hard sometimes, especially with a child. You know what? Before her, we were fine. Like, I worked full time. He was still struggling to kind of find himself work. But do you know what? Like, we would have got there eventually. And then he moved in the state, and I studied over here, and I've just finished my study. And, you know, I'm really, like, fucking proud of him for where he's gone and what he's done, and, you know, that he's been such an amazing provider for us. But I need help now, you know, like, I need support. Like, if I'm going to go work full time, I need support. Because last year I was having breakdown after breakdown after breakdown, and I was just exhausted. And you can't live your life like that. You know, we don't want to live our life stressed. So we've made a decision to pack up everything and go. And I'm really looking forward to that. So that's in 5 weeks. So Lily, our daughter, she goes back with my mum home in 4 weeks. I'm really looking forward to that. And I'm like, I don't drink at all anymore. I used to drink really heavily, and I don't anymore. And I'm going to suggest that we just go out for dinner and drinks, because I need to. We need to do that for ourselves, because we don't get to do that ever. And I miss just spending time with him, you know? Our time together is like, he gets home at like 11:30, and I'm a zombie, he's a zombie. we might watch something, we might talk a little crap, and then we'll go to bed really late, you know, like 1-ish, because we haven't seen each other, and then we're exhausted. So it's just really unhealthy. Yeah, it really sucks. So, you know, pre-diagnosis, post-diagnosis, it's more like pre-child, post, you know, like having her, because before her, like, I could live my own life, but now I do feel a little tied in. And I guess that's a motherhood thing anyway, but it is super hard with a husband who is quite inflexible and has been funny about finances, and I'm not like that. So I'm glad he's got like the anal side of the finances, because I don't save at all. So I'm glad he has that, you know, under control, because I don't really care about money. I don't go spend it, but I don't really care. And he cares, and he saves, and he's amazing at it. So I give him that. But he did get quite controlling for a little bit of time, and that was really hard, and I struggled with that. So what else was I going to talk about? The second psych appointment, he went by himself. I had him write a whole list, right? Because I wanted him to ask about our daughter, because I was really struggling with her and I didn't know what to do. And I think I'm just at the point where I'm like, I don't want to do this on my own. Like, I need him to say, yes, let's go make an appointment to see someone. Now, we've decided now we're not going to do that till we get back home. But yeah, we're going to get her checked out and diagnosed if she is. If she's not, then that's great. Either way, whatever. It's more just so that we know how to make things easy for her, because she has meltdowns often. We had a whole month of meltdowns recently, and then she's had an amazing week this week, and it feels like a completely different child. And it's like, yeah. But her meltdowns are quite intense, and she's been lining things up for about a month now, and quite often, and very particular about specific things. Temperature, will not let me wash her hair, will not let me brush her hair, will not let me go near her hair. So after a month of that, I cut her hair last night. That was hard. For both of us, that was very traumatic, trying to wash and dry and brush and even get her in the bath. So it's obviously quite a sensory thing. Lining up is kind of funny, because she'll line up food. She'll line up cheese and biscuits and anything she can get her hands on. And she loves drawing, so I've been really getting her into drawing, and that's been really positive, because she draws she's got these really amazing little scenes, and she'll draw them out, and I'm really allowing her to do that at the moment. I think it's really important. I'd love for her to do more painting, but it does go a bit haywire sometimes, and this house isn't really big enough for that, so I'm not quite... I think when we go to mum and dad's, like, I'll just let her paint out the back, because I know that, like, my dad won't mind. It's a bit different in rental, and I'm a bit worried sometimes. She gets really sloppy. But texters and stuff, she's pretty good with it. So she's been watching the iPad a fair bit and playing games on there. And I really want to find some, like, really cool games that she can play, like matching, because she doesn't know what things are. So, like, say you've got ABC, and she's got the ABC at the top, and then she's needing to match, like, the shapes or whatever. She couldn't match that, but if you had, if I told her, like, that's the same as that one, she could match it. So she can identify the shape, but she can't identify, like, oh, that's A and it matches with that, and that's A. But if you just said literally that's the shape and that's the shape. She's pretty obsessed with shapes. And loves trains. And not obsessively, but she does really like them. That's not like, you know, diagnostic kind of thing, but yeah, she loves to be crushed, just like her dad, hug crushed, and she likes to, she has a lot of that vestibular needs. So yeah, it's definitely like looking that way, which is fine, you know, like we'll just make do with it. It's my life, and I have said, oh goodness, the cat just sneezed. I have said to my husband, I live with two very strange people, and that's okay. And I hope that when we do have another baby, if we do have another baby, that they're like me. And that's my hope. But I'm excited as well because she is super intelligent, and I love like the imagery that she puts together, and her stories, and she comes with these amazing songs. She's always singing, and she puts a lot of her life into song, and I love that. That's just amazing to me. So as much as she is meltdowny and tired, and I think I've started to get her to understand that when she's in that meltdown space, and it's often in the morning, because she hasn't slept through the night for a while, and that's affecting all of us for about 3 months now. That's affecting all of us as well. But when she's in that meltdown state, I'm saying to her, you're tired, and she, I'll say, you are tired and you do need to go to sleep. And today I was on the phone outside, and she just went down to sleep. So maybe she's getting to the age now where she's able to do that bit more. And I said, why did you go down to sleep? And she said, I was really tired. And I said, yeah, I was trying to tell you that. Because that's what my husband needs when he has a meltdown. He really needs to sleep. So I'm glad that she did that today. But not always the case. And we can have meltdown after meltdown after meltdown throughout the day. And it's pretty exhausting. Especially when you've got two of them. Bless them. But yeah, so third appointment, we saw the psych, and second appointment, sorry. He had this huge list of things that he was going to talk about, and then he went in there and he was all muddled and he couldn't talk about any of them. He just talked about how he'd like to make his relationship better with his daughter. And the psych said, you know, you play with her. And I did say to him, because he's trying to micromanage her. So what I can see, I mean, I did get him a shirt that said Control Freak for a reason, with a Nintendo pad, right? Because he's a control freak, as a lot of Aspies are. They want to be able to control the situation. I understand that. It must be very full on in that world, yeah? And I do think about this often. I ask him a lot of questions about what he's going through, and I think, holy shit, like, how do you even deal with this, you know? And he's just used to functioning, I guess. And so he was trying to control her and very much micromanage her too much. And I kept saying to him, like, you've got to calm this down. You can't micromanage her. And he did calm that down, and I think that's why we've had a better week. He's learnt that he needs to just get her breakfast. You know, don't be so, like, controlling about that. And you know, he was like, oh, she grabbed the apple juice and she poured it, and I said, yeah, she's nearly 4, she can do that, she's really independent, let her do it. So it's just that stuff I think he could get really like anxious about. It's not worth it, and it's too stressful for him anyway. It's not worth him stressing about. So he's learning how to be a parent with autism, and it's really fucking hard. And he's learning how to be a partner with autism, and that's really fucking hard. And I'm learning how to be a parent and a wife and a mother in that situation too. And the only thing that we are really looking forward to is going back home. So we'll probably see the psych once more. And that's it. Which Kane will be happy about, because paying $120 is a bit much. And that's after the, like, you know, the mental health rebate, which is shit. And I think it is really disgusting, because children do, like, they get all these, if you go public, they've got, you know, the free, you know, free services, and then the adults have to pay, and pay $1,000 for a diagnosis is bullshit. So that needs to change, big time. But yeah, so I thought I'd update another update. We're still really struggling. Nothing's easy. Has anything changed? No. He still doesn't do the washing. He'll do the dishes. He's way more tired than what he probably ever has been, which is kind of bizarre because, like, he was always tired. But he's really struggling with work and he's really over it. So I see that he's kind of at that point where he's just ready to give it away, and we'll both be glad about that because the industry is terrible, especially for families, but for Asperger families especially. So, you know, we've kind of come to terms that this is our life, and it always has been. It's just now we know about it and we know how to make things a bit better. The psych told us that we will not be able to implement anything positive, anything strength-based until we move, because we do need support for that. And in that stress space, like, you can't do anything. So he suggested that my husband goes for a walk 10 minutes to somewhere and then 10 minutes back. Gave him the instruction because he said to him, do you exercise? And he said, I've jogged when I needed to catch the bus. And it's not just like to the bus, it's like he'll jog half an hour to the station. And I laughed. I felt a bit bad for that, but I did laugh, and I said, he'll jog if he's got a mission. So, you know, the psych said, okay, how about you do a 20-minute walk? And even when he went to take it the next day, he said, will you be okay? And yeah, like, I'm all right. I'm just tired. So, but I am really struggling to get out of bed. I'm like a bit of a sloth at the moment. But I'm kind of allowing it to happen. Like, I know we've got to pack, but I figure we've just got to set ourselves some time for that. So, I don't know. I don't know how to fix that. My mum and dad are coming up and they're going to help us, so maybe we'll just leave a lot of it till that weekend. So I just feel like I don't know how we can do stuff without, like, having some support and having that help. And we've always had that help in the past, so yeah, it's kind of feels really alien. I mean, we've never had help packing our house up and stuff, but I don't know, at our hometown we always had a bit of help with that, like, it was before we had Lily, so it's just a bit weird to feel really alone like that. And I think I feel more alone because, like, he's starting to come to terms with all this as well, and so he's leaning on me a lot, and I'm like, where the fuck am I meant to lean? But, you know, I watch a lot of videos and a lot of wives and partners are the same. And 80%, I think it is, of marriages, like, split or relationships split with Asperger's or autism. We love them so much, but it can be really hard. I don't know. When he disconnected for about 5 weeks, since the diagnosis, and, like, there was nothing. Like, we would just go to bed, sleep. The last couple of days, it's been a bit more like we felt a bit more us. But, yeah, and it's interesting because, like, I was watching a video before where a lady was saying that, like, her husband is Asperger's and he's helped her through so much emotional, you know, work, some that he's caused too. But I thought, wow, like, my husband's done the same. Like, I don't know if anyone else would have been able to deal with that, you know. Like, I've always been a very emotional person. I've always written poetry. I'm quite creative in that way. And when we move, I'll be doing a lot more of my art. And, like, I think, wow, like, if I was with someone who was more neurotypical, would they be able to put up with that? Because I was with a lot of, like, guys before, you know, my husband, and none of them could really deal with it. So it makes me wonder. It does actually make me wonder how many of them are Asperger's. Because they were all really similar. Says a lot for who, you know, we go for in life. But, yeah, it does make me wonder. It really does. But, yeah, so we're just cruising along. We've got 4 weeks till our daughter leaves, 5 weeks till we leave, and we're really looking forward to it. We're both kind of just like, we just want it to hurry up. But we know it will get there. it will get there. And we're nearly into June now, so it's really positive. And I've got a WordPress. It's just a WordPress. I haven't really done anything with it, but I started up a WordPress, and it's called justouautismjourney.wordpress.com, and I've just started putting up some stuff on there. So I'll pop it like in the description as well. I love watching other people's YouTubes and articles about what it's like to experience Asperger's, and one of my biggest things was to document this journey, not just for me but for others, because like it's increasing. Like adults had not been diagnosed, and so it's going to increase, and it's okay. They're incredible people. Let's funnel their creativity, and let's funnel them into a space where they can be themselves. Not force them to go work in some shitty job that they're not going to want to do, and they're going to be stressed out, and they're going to be having meltdowns, you know? Like my friends, they don't work, and they've got a lot of trauma as well, so it's not just, you know, autism. And like their mum kind of like wants them to go work, and I'm not saying that they shouldn't go work, but fucking hell, man, like their bodies are out of control sometimes. Like I know for me, I struggle, and I'm just tired. I don't have sensory overwhelm. I don't have like fucking chronic pain. And my husband often has chronic pain to the point where like he can't move, you know, and he will get through it. But like my friend who has Asperger's, she's got chronic pain like really bad due to the sensory issues, you know, and then we fucking treat them like they're criminals, like, you know, for even having DSP or whatever. It's really pissed me off, to be honest. It's really pissed me off. It's like this idea that they're lazy, and one of the things that, you know, I will always advocate for is that it's not the case. I can be lazy. I have a choice, and they're not being lazy. So I'm going to leave it at that, because otherwise YouTube's probably going to be like, I'm not going to accept your video here because it's already 42 minutes. So I'll leave it there, and we'll see what comes up next. I'll try to do one next week to see how we're going along. And if you're interested in having a conversation with me, please feel free to comment. I may not get back to you ASAP, but I will get back to you. And yeah, check out the WordPress if you want to. Yeah. Thanks so much for listening and watching, and hopefully learning and understanding, and maybe comparing it to your life, because I was doing that a lot before we got our diagnosis. I was watching a lot of YouTubes going, holy shit, I think that's my husband. Holy shit, that might be my daughter. So we love the strangeness, but it does get exhausting, and I think opening up those conversations and opening up that communication is really, really important. We don't get awareness without opening up that communication, and I've always been a huge advocate for mental health awareness, so this is just another thing to add on to my awareness hat. So yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I'm sure that I will chat to you soon. Bye.